of this great conference. Atefe is going to present the first part, and I'm going to present the rest.
Let me start screen sharing so that we can begin. Okay. The vocabulary that is used to describe the process of learning magic is often similar to what is used to describe science. For instance, this is seen in two major video games when magic is studied and the mages usually seek more knowledge. There are different schools of witchers in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Banard Academy, which is a place to learn magic, is mentioned in the Bestiary, and the Aretuza Academy for sorceresses is mentioned in a journal entry about a sorceress called Margarita. Druids are scholars who constantly study nature. They are herbalists, alchemists, and many of them can do magic. An in-game book called Introduction to Applied Magic says magic is the science of harnessing, subduing, and making use of the elements. Moreover, the mages in the College of Winterhold use spell books and libraries and do experiments to learn magic in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. However, this is not the only similarity between science and magic in these game worlds. For example, in The Witcher, Geralt creates potions using alchemy, and when he examines an area using his magically, Geralt creates potions using alchemy, and when he examines an area using his magically enhanced senses, he resembles forensic scientists using advanced technology. In Skyrim, the Temple of Kennereth in Whiterun seems to be both a temple and an infirmary of some sort. Healing power is sometimes something that magic, divinity and alchemy have in common in this game. Creations of mages also resemble those of science and technology, like when Geralt uses a magical device similar to a cell phone or walkie in a quest. Even Igni in The Witcher or fire magic in a Skyrim work very much like a flamethrower, only using sign or magicka as fuel. In the physical world, ordinary citizens who are not experts do not usually know how everyday technology does what it does, and they often just push a button and do not even care how it works as long as it works. It is very magical to the untrained citizens. Further, magic is often political, and mages are used by politicians. There are characters that fear magic associated with the divine and assume that some individuals are born with a talent for it, almost in the same way that people have perceived science at times. Fringula's journal entry says Emperor Emir had once presented the mages of Nilfgaard with a simple choice: either serve their country unquestioningly or die in prison. The journal entry for Karamet says that she used to be advisor of King Foltest, but then she lost his trust and joined the Lodge of Sorceresses, which made the rulers of Redania and Nilfgaard dislike her too. Another in-game book titled The Lodge of Sorceresses says Radovid blames the lodge for plague and pox falling upon God-fearing folks. However, Geralt finds out Kara's plague formula deal with Radovid, which shows his hypocrisy and confirms that Radovid shares Emir's with us or against us policy. At the beginning of the story, Yennefer is trying to get out of battlefields, which again shows a mage stuck because of politics. Supernatural creatures are also political in the game. For instance, fear of ghosts in the people's own land does not let them enjoy it unless there is a soldier there, or other representatives of the government. Even witchers, who are a product of magic to some extent, are soldiers who kill monsters. They are similar to the military products of scientists. In addition, witchers are not welcome in the community and are called freaks and are disturbed. The mages are also blamed for creating them. Only 3 out of 10 boys survive the procedures, and some witchers die trying to kill monsters and to save people, which again supports the warfare metaphor. Another in-game book called Necromancy, the Forbidden Magic, says necromancy could be used to create reusable soldiers and to revive or recycle them. Moreover, there are many moments in the game when people fear magic. Villagers think Yennefer's necromancy disrespect their customs. Freya's priestesses treat mages and sorceresses with caution. The priests of eternal fire are against magic and are witch hunters, and resemble religious groups that are afraid of science. In his book titled, "What is this thing called science?" Chalmers says that science has a high position in society, but people sometimes despise it as well when they talk about things such as bomb, which is similar to what is seen in the case of magic in these games. In Skyrim, the people of Winterhold blame the mages and the college for the collapse of the city. People are generally afraid of the consequences of magic, also for other reasons such as the Oblivion Crisis. However, they seem to like Thuum or the Shout. They like restoration magic that heals them, but not others labeled as destruction magic. They use magic amulets, but dislike Daedra. This double standard is similar to how ideology treats science. In addition, in this game, some mages directly work for the Empire, some for their rivals, and many other mages directly or indirectly affect the political scenery of Skyrim. The player characters could also use magic while interacting with their surrounding and deciding the storyline. Okay, now Hossein is going to continue. Thank you.
Okay, following what Atefe, following what Atefe just discussed, this study argues that the resemblance between magic and science hints at a symbolic meaning. The political magic in these game worlds could represent politicized science in the physical world, and associating magic with science could have political implications. It also argues that studying how characters perceive or interact with magic in these video games could lead to understanding how people engage with science in modern societies, how they understand it, mystify it, possibly even fear it, or distort it into a modern religion, and how they believe and spread misinformation. Moreover, doing so could also help understand the relationship between ideology and science and challenge the notion of apolitical science. The editors of a book called Defining Magic, among other sources, they refer to a triangle consisting of magic, religion, and science. In both games, the triangle can be seen. In addition, since magic is considered to be representing science here, a discussion of the relationship between magic and religion could help understand how mystified science could function like a religion. In The Witcher, it is mentioned in a dialogue that Radovid has made the people of Novigrad turn into extremists who want to get rid of the mages and follow the eternal fire in order to weaken the city, because a city without mages is more vulnerable and easier to capture. In physical reality, consider the situation of researchers in the Middle East. Many are forced to move to other countries or escape as refugees, and as a result, the countries are easy to manipulate and exploit. In terms of the reward system, both games rewards curiosity. The player needs to be curious in order to find good spell books and learn magic in Skyrim, and in The Witcher, the player can find places of power and better gear by exploration, which is similar to how science rewards the curious. Steyer says in his book, Making Magic, that although magic represents materiality and social power, religion does not. Moreover, Malinowski, in his book, Magic, Science, and Religion, and other essays, says magic requires strict conditions and technique. It is pseudoscience. He says magic and science are primarily for specialists to perform, but religion is for all. Mass media has a tendency to spread news of research without providing any valid scientific sources. Journalists sometimes publish early research results, as also noted by Voloshin and Schwartz in their article titled "What's the Rush? The Dissemination and Adoption of Preliminary Research Results." This is probably because they make good news and sound exciting. In addition, sometimes news outlets close to the government prefer to give publicity to research confirming the established ideology. For instance, if two studies on the advantages and disadvantages of fasting get done, one saying it is beneficial and the other saying it is dangerous, it is clear which one gets media coverage in, for example, a religious Middle Eastern country. That is, of course, if the other one even gets published in a journal inside that country at all. Media is prone to spreading misinformation, and the consumers of misinformation become so accustomed to reading and sharing it that they gradually forget about sources. Moreover, Chalmers says in his book that in advertisement, companies claim that their products have been scientifically approved. Therefore, their quality is beyond dispute. Further, the attempt to depoliticize what is already political or politicize while claiming that it is not political or ideological and accusing people or critics of politicizing it could create serious problems. For example, in his article, The Construction of Global Warming and the Politics of Science, Demerit says that science affects politics, but politics also affects science and shapes research questions, methods, and standards. He explains that ignoring the social aspect of science could lead to mistrust, such as when some people do not trust climate change science. However, Joe Biden claimed in a tweet that he would have a CDC which would be free from politics. Biden's claim would be more believable if there were not so many articles on the internet discussing how lockdowns and vaccines influenced and were affected by the US elections. Such claims ignore factors such as funding and social policies that make research possible. Science is often depicted as detached and existing in some kind of void or in isolation, not affected by anything, even the economy. Consequently, it is mystified. And almost anything with the word science attached to it, for instance, on social media, could be accepted at once. Following such a fetishization of science, the sources spreading the so-called scientific news become so many that those spreading misinformation are mixed and confused with those publishing facts or the findings of standard empirical research, at least in communities with more undereducated masses. The public are pushed by these reports not only towards certain habits of consumption that are beneficial to certain corporations, but also towards certain political parties or agendas. Moreover, sometimes what is published as scientific data is political from the start and is even used to satisfy religious groups at times and to confirm the established ideology. In this way, science turns into a modern era religion that controls the public with a clumsy holy book whose verses begin with the words, according to scientists. Religion has its marketing techniques and strategies, and science is sometimes one of them. Chalmers says once a newspaper advertisement was headed, "Science speaks and says the Christian Bible is provedly true," and said that even the scientists themselves believe in it, believe it these days. Further, magic and religion have a lot in common. Levi Strauss in the Savage Mind says, "There's no religion without magic any more than there's magic without at least a trace of religion." Malinowski explains that in magic, people and nature interact directly, but in religion, people might get what they desire through the supernatural, a god or goddess. An article on the conversation also says that magic encourages human participation, science encourages the individual to observe objectively, and religion channels human participation through a god. At first, magic might seem more chaotic compared to religion, which has a filter called God. However, physical reality suggests otherwise when the various interpretations of religious books create deadly and destructive wars. However, when science is mystified, it could be even worse than magic or religion. It could primarily be because science is seen as more civilized and the conqueror of the territory of magic and religion. Thus, its impact would be enormous. Whether one defines the abuser of mystified and fetishized science as oppressive regimes, regressive political parties, or big corporations, science has to be demystified and the masses disillusioned. Malinowski says that magic and religion both answer emotional stress, and when there is no empirical way out, magic and religion offer one. They are both based on mythology and surrounded by taboos. Tyler, in his book Primitive Culture, explains that ordinary people did not understand science, so poets simplified the natural world. The narrative then turned into myth. Therefore, one can assume that if science is transformed from empirical research and facts into a narrative without reliable sources, it could turn into something much similar to magic and religion, because they are both based on narrative as well. Finally, having explained how a discussion of the political aspect of magic in these games could help understand that science is political, it is necessary to note that instead of trying to erroneously emphasize the notion of apolitical science, it is better to accept that everything in a society influences and is influenced by everything else in it. And if some political or ideological issues are creating false data, those ideological or political issues should be addressed, not ignored. And claiming science is beyond being influenced by them not only does not solve anything, but also creates more serious problems. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.